There was homeless before Katrina.
That's right.
There were some services in place that actually worked
And working.
before Katrina. There
Seashore
were.
Mission
You
were
had,
working.
You had quite a few places around here. When Katrina came, everybody at that point was faced with some type of level of homelessness. And at that point, I feel that it's my understanding, based on what I observed, that individuals, churches, volunteers, government, whoever it may be, was willing to help every face of homelessness at that point in time. What saddens me is that because of Katrina, we now have a new face of homelessness. People who are trapped in a cycle of homelessness or on the verge of homelessness because the systems that are in place don't allow somebody to progress forward and to eventually come out of those cycles.
There you go.
That's for the new face of homelessness. For the homeless that existed prior to Katrina, it's just made it 100 times harder for them to transition out of those cycles as well, because now they got a new face in front of them that can't even transition out of those cycles. You can't even get people with money, for instance, into affordable housing when affordable housing is at market rent. Okay? You can't get people into affordable housing when employment is at such a low, they can't get housing because they can't make enough money for the deposit, for the first month's rent, for the electricity, for the food, for all the things that come along with getting off the streets or staying off the streets. To address what I deal with mostly on a day-to-day basis, which is, and I don't like to use this term, but for the sake of Washington, what the government considers chronically homeless. Clenestine and I, and Cabliba, and all the staff at Safe Space in El Pueblo have an opportunity to see whatever you want to call it, chronic homeless, residentially challenged, marginally housed, people without shelter, whatever it may be, however we want to fluff it up and call it. We have an opportunity to see people's lives changed through us being in community with one another, supporting one another, and walking with each other. This is the issues that I have in my case management. I can't get somebody or help somebody or begin even case managing somebody for housing when you're homeless, and in the state of Mississippi, you can't get even a state ID without address. Okay? How am I supposed to help somebody with an employment? How am I supposed to help somebody with housing? How am I supposed to help somebody go to the Job Win Center when they don't even have a state ID to identify who they are? Well, when you don't have a state ID, how do you go get a Social Security card? When you don't have a Social Security card and state ID, how do you go get a birth certificate? You can't. And that is my observation as a case manager. So without vital records, without identification, how does somebody ever even transition out of these cycles of homelessness? And we're talking about any level of homelessness, on the streets, under the bridge, in the woods, in a precariously living from person to person to person, living with a family member. If you don't own where you're living, you are considered homeless. Okay? So there's many levels and many faces of homelessness.